I'm an autism advocate. I'm a children's book illustrator, author. My latest book is called I'm Autistic and I'm Phenomenal. And it follows a little Black autistic girl around, and it's a day in her life. I'm a former choreographer, and I am dedicated to advancing autism awareness and acceptance. If you know me, you know that I'm more toward acceptance than awareness, but I am the founder of Black Autism Acceptance Day, and it's an initiative created to uplift, celebrate, and center Black autistic individuals and their families from all around the world. I have illustrated 30 children's books, and I made an intentional choice to feature disabled characters in the books that I illustrate. I've illustrated books of children in wheelchairs, children who have vitiligo, the autistic characters. So I'm about inclusion, and it comes out through my artwork. My main advocacy is self-advocacy, and I speak through my lived experiences. So yeah, that's who I am. So I'm just gonna get right into the conversation that I want to have with you guys today. Um, I want to start with something really simple, and that basically is that autism doesn't look the same on everyone. Um, a lot of times I get, oh, well, you don't look autistic, and I think that people forget like that it's such a broad spectrum and autism doesn't discriminate. So for decades, I feel like autism has been treated like it looks the same for everybody. The dominant image of autism, and traditionally, and the textbook example, research studies, media, it's been focused and centered on like little white boys. So when someone doesn't match that image, especially in a Black woman like myself or a little Black girl, things can go unseen. But it's not just because you're autistic, but it's because of what society has been taught about autism, and it's because of, we've been taught the wrong things about autism, of what autism is supposed to look like. And I think something that is very important that is people need to see the entire picture. Like, many Black autistic women grow up like me. I knew that I was different, but I didn't have a language for it and I didn't have a name for it. So I couldn't name it. So it was really hard for me to know who I was. And, growing up undiagnosed, I am a millennial and I was only diagnosed about 10 years ago. And I'm going to get into my diagnosis story as well. Sometimes you can be called to, it was either I was shy, then I was sensitive, then I was too much. So then it became like, I became like an expert at like studying social rules and like rehearsing conversations, forced eye contact, smiling at the right time. But what that kind of did for me as a Black autistic little girl, I was around a lot of adults. So I'm studying social rules and rehearsing conversation of adults. So then I was just like, they were just like, oh, she's grown. She's a fast little grown little girl. Black autistic people, we don't get the grace that others do. But I do not force eye contact anymore. I have set boundaries. And if I don't know if I'm supposed to smile, I'm not going to smile. But I do mask. And for Black women, masking is very layered. It's not just masking autism traits, it's also like navigating racial stereotypes, like being careful not to be labeled angry, which before me pre-diagnosis, I was always labeled angry. It was always like the angry Black woman, and you don't want to be the loud Black girl or the Black girl that's quiet, the Black girl that's awkward or too emotional or too distant. So I think that's something that people really don't understand that what can you what should I call it? Oh, the constant self-monitoring is really exhausting. And when autism is missed, it doesn't just delay a diagnosis, it delays like your self-understanding and your self-worth. And that can lead to anxiety, which I had as a child and we didn't know what it was. Back then autism wasn't spoken about in the Black community at all. We didn't know I was autistic, and anxiety and mental health is stigmatized in the Black community. So I had anxiety and we didn't know. Depression, which there are still times where I go through depression, burnout, just because of years of masking. So everything else just kind of feels harder for me. But I feel like when people see the whole picture, expanding or understanding autism, so it includes those have been like historically overlooked. So I'm gonna try to keep my diagnosis story as briefly as possible. But my family always knew that I was different. And being a millennial growing up at that time, we didn't know anything about autism. I didn't know anything about autism. I would see like posters about autism, but it would always be like a little white boy in the poster. So I didn't even know, like, my ignorance. I didn't know any black autistic people. I didn't know black people could be autistic. So they knew I was different. I feel like besides being black, the reason why I kind of like fell through the cracks is because I'm an artist. And people are always like, oh, artists are so eccentric. That's just how she is. Leave her alone. So it didn't when the point where I feel like it was like a turning point that I was a little bit different and I had some stuff going on was like that shift from like teenage years to adulthood where I just couldn't do it. And I had people saying, oh, she's just lazy, she don't want to do nothing with her life, and just like outsiders who really didn't know me. And like to this day, like there are still things, simple things that people probably feel I should know how to do, but I don't. And like my dad does my banking, and when as a chronically ill person, I see a lot of specialists, and he still does like my paperwork when I see a new specialist. So everybody always knew I was different. So getting right to how I was diagnosed, people were just calling me angry and suspecting I had bipolar. So I was put in a psychiatric hospital against my will. Um, I was there for 3 months. And after like 2.5 months, they still, didn't know what to do with me. They were saying that I was bipolar and they put me on a medication for bipolar, which was lithium, and it destroyed my body. Like to this day, I'm on other medications to help like with the things that my body needs now because of that lithium, a drug that I didn't need just because they thought that I was bipolar. Because I always say this, like before a black woman is ever considered that we might be neurodivergent, we get that angry black woman label. And so after 2.5 months, one doctor said, oh, I think that she's on the spectrum. So they brought in a team. My assessment was about 2 days long, 2 or 3 days, and a couple hours each day. It was very grueling. Came back with the treatment team a couple days later, and they were like, yeah, she's on the spectrum. We also found out that I have ADHD, that I'm dyslexic. I have like, I'm a little emotionally stunted and I have a few delays. So we found out a lot, but the main thing that made the most sense to me was that I was autistic. So I was like, wow, like, um, I feel like it took so long for me to be diagnosed, obviously for systemic reasons. And this is why I feel like breaking down systemic barriers is so important. But this isn't just about individuals being misunderstood. It is about systems. Like in healthcare, black children are diagnosed later than their white peers. And I'm gonna say it is on average, about 3 years later than their white peers. And black children are more likely to be mischaracterized before being accurately assessed. Like in schools, black neurodivergent students are disciplined at higher rates instead of supported, criminalized instead of saying, let's help this child. Let's say this, instead of saying this child is a threat. I was talking to someone that reached out to me on, I think, TikTok, and they were like that they work at a school with autistic children, and they always say and punish the black autistic child, but then they support the white autistic child. So it is about systems, and it does start at the top. And in my opinion, none of this is accidental. That's bias that has been built into the systems. And just gonna touch on underserved communities. Access to evaluations can be expensive, and I feel like people don't know that and they don't understand that. Like specialists may not be available in every community. An example is underserved communities, so they don't have access to get the autism assessment. A lot of them go to like clinics, and when you get to the clinic, they want you in and they want you out. They're not going to give you the treatment that you need and the attention that you need. And I feel like when some families try to advocate, their concerns are not taken seriously. That's where the medical gaslighting begins. That's where the medical bias begins. And clinics don't look for autism traits, which to me it doesn't make any sense, because clinics in underserved communities can do the initial assessment. It's like 13 minutes, and that 13 minutes can change a life. That 13 minutes can stop a child from going through life not knowing who they are. That 13 minutes can help to prevent somebody from having self-hate. That 13 minutes can show somebody that they're worthy and they have a place in this world. So, like, when we talk about equity, we're not just talking about kindness. We're talking about policy. We're talking about training. We're talking about representation, accountability, because like you can't dismantle a barrier you refuse to name. My advocacy is self-advocacy based on my lived experiences. And I feel like that's where the change begins, like listening. Like Black autistic women, we've been telling our stories online and in community spaces. I must say that a lot of autistic spaces that I have come encounter with are not always safe for Black people. And some of the most racist people that I have met have been autistic. And you don't get a pass for being racist just because you're autistic. And even in like research and interviews, but too often I feel like Black voices aren't centered in mainstream conversations, and that's also a part of the problem because people aren't really familiarized with it. So when they do see it, they kind of don't pay it any attention. Like just recently, Mattel released the Black Barbie, and I asked him, I was like, "Is there a Black one?" And they said, "No, not at this time." But the post went viral, and people were so outraged because I asked, "Was there a Black Barbie?" And I'm like, we use the word inclusion a lot, and it triggers a lot of people, but why are you triggered when it's just like people want to be feel seen? Little Black autistic girls want to feel seen too. So when society actually listens, they hear stories of dual awareness, of code switching. Black culture is based on respect. Someone could think you're getting smart and you will get in trouble, think you're being fresh when you don't know how to like just